This narrative is titled, I Financed My Sister's Extravagant Wedding Only for Her to Call Me a Failure at Dinner. Now that I've stopped supporting her financially, she's begging for forgiveness because she can't afford it on her own. Hey everyone, before we dive into today's video, I need your help. Our channel seems to be losing momentum, and subscribing is one of the easiest ways you can help us out. It's free, quick, and it allows us to continue creating great content for you. Your support truly means a lot to us, so let's keep growing this channel together. Thanks a lot. Now, let's get into the video. Hey everyone, I don't usually share here, but this has been bothering me for a while, and I need to speak up because I honestly feel like a complete fool. If you've ever wondered what it's like to be treated as an endless source of money by your own family, stick around. Here's the situation. I'm a 30-year-old single man, no kids, just an average guy living an ordinary life. My younger sister, Sarah, is 26, and she's quite different. She dreams big, wants the perfect life, and craves that fairy tale ending. Last year, she got engaged to a guy named Ryan, who is 28. He seemed all right at the time, though I didn't know him too well. Ryan is the type of person who always has big plans that are supposed to change everything, but they never work out. He hops from one job to another, spending whatever little he makes on gadgets, hobbies, and nights out, rather than taking care of the essentials. Sarah used to laugh it off, saying, "That's just Ryan being Ryan." But to me, it just seemed reckless, and honestly, it feels like he has no issue with me picking up the tab whenever they're in a financial bind. If anything, it seems like he expects it. Sarah has always been the favored one in our family. Growing up, she could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. If she wanted something, they'd do whatever they could to get it for her. Whether it was a last-minute party, a new gadget, or even paying for her tuition when she blew through her savings. As for me, I was always the responsible one, never asked for help, never needed much, and always picked up the slack. This dynamic has been in place as long as I can remember. When Sarah announced her engagement, our parents acted like it was the greatest thing that ever happened to our family. I was happy for her, of course, but the way they went on about it, you'd think she'd just cured world hunger. Then came the wedding planning. It all started innocently enough. One evening, my mom called me. "Hey, honey," she began. "I was just talking to Sarah about her big day, and she thought it'd be nice to chat with you." I figured it was just typical wedding talk. Maybe she wanted advice on venues or colors or just someone to gush to about how perfect everything was going. So I said, "Sure, tell her to call me." But then my mom hesitated. "Well, actually," she said, "we thought it'd be better to talk now, together." That was my first red flag. My mom is not one to beat around the bush unless there's something I'm not going to like. I asked, "What's going on?" "Well," she started, "you know how much this wedding means to Sarah. She's dreamed about it for so long, and she really wants it to be special." I said, "That's great. I'm happy for her." But my mom kept going. "She's got so many ideas," she said, clearly stalling. A live band, custom invitations, maybe even a surprise for Ryan during the ceremony. She's really putting her heart into it. Then came the kicker. "But you know, weddings are expensive. She's doing her best, but there's only so much she can manage on her own, and we're a little tight too." I knew right away this wasn't about advice. This was about money. "So, what are you saying?" I asked, already sensing what was coming. "Sarah was hoping you might be able to help out," my mom said. "Just a little. Help with the venue deposit, or maybe part of the catering. Nothing too big." Aha! This wasn't offering to help with decorations or picking up guests from the airport. This was financial help, and it wasn't going to be a small amount. "She really needs you," my mom added. "You've always been so responsible. and we knew we could count on you to make her dream come true." It wasn't a compliment. It was a hint that I was expected to handle everything because I didn't have a family of my own to take care of. That line made my blood boil every time. I didn't say anything for a minute, partly because I didn't know how to respond, and partly because I was already trying to calculate how much this was going to cost me. "I'll think about it," I finally said, trying not to commit to anything. "Great," my mom said quickly, almost like she'd just closed a deal. "I'll let Sarah know you're on board. This will mean so much to her." At first, it didn't seem so bad. The venue deposit, a little something to get things rolling. "You're so good with money, and you've been working so hard. We knew we could count on you," she said. I didn't want to make it awkward, so I said yes. I thought, all right, this is my sister's wedding. It's just one day. I can help. But here's the thing about saying yes. Once you start, it doesn't stop. First, it was the deposit. Then it was the catering. Then the flowers, the photographer, the band, and even the dress. Her dress cost more than my car. No exaggeration. I wanted to say no, but it was too late. Family supports family, my mom would always remind me. This is such a big moment for her. Don't you want her to have the wedding she's always dreamed of? By the end, I had spent $50,000. Yeah, 50 grand. I drained my savings, maxed out a credit card, and picked up extra shifts to make it happen. All for one day. Every time I wrote a check, I told myself it was for Sarah's happiness. But with each payment, I felt a little piece of me slip away. Was this what family was supposed to feel like? Sacrificing everything while they took it all for granted? A week before the wedding, Sarah called in a panic. "The band we wanted just raised their rates," she said, frantic. "I know you've already helped a lot, but could you cover the difference? It's only $2,000, and I'll pay you back." She never did, but by then I was too far in to back out. What was another $2,000 after $48,000? Deep down, I knew the money would never come back. The wedding itself was beautiful. Sarah looked like a princess, and everyone had a great time. Everyone except me. As I arrived at the venue, my mom cornered me immediately. "Make sure you help with the kids during the reception," she said, as if I wasn't already doing enough. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just a guest at this wedding. I was the unpaid staff. As I sat at the back table, watching everyone else enjoy themselves, I wondered why I agreed to any of it in the first place. After the wedding, I thought I could finally breathe. I figured Sarah and Ryan would settle into their new life, and I could focus on rebuilding my savings. After all, I'd already done my part, right? Wrong. The first sign that things weren't over came a month later when Sarah called me. "Hey, big brother," she said. "I hate to ask, but we're a little tight this month. Could you help us out with rent?" I froze. "What do you mean, tight? Didn't you just get a bunch of money from wedding gifts?" "Well, yeah," she said, laughing like it was no big deal. "But we used most of that for the honeymoon and, other stuff." I wanted to say no right then, but I hesitated. She sounded so casual about it, like it was just something brothers do. And once again, she pulled the "you're my big brother" card. So I caved and sent her enough to cover rent for that month, convincing myself it was just a one-time thing. But it wasn't. The requests kept coming. Rent one month, utility bills the next. At one point, she asked me to cover a car payment because Ryan had a slow week at work. Every time I started to push back, she'd get upset. "You're acting like this is such a big deal," she'd say. "You know we can count on you." But they couldn't. I never saw a single penny of that money again. The worst part was Sarah didn't even seem thankful. I'd see her on social media posting pictures of expensive dinners, weekend getaways, and new clothes, while I was eating instant noodles and working double shifts just to get by. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself it was just temporary. She's my sister, I thought. She'll figure things out in time. But deep down, I was starting to feel like a walking ATM. Then came the family dinner. The one that changed everything. Family dinners were supposed to be relaxed. An opportunity to enjoy a good meal, catch up, and share some laughs. But this one was anything but. I don't know why I even bothered going. My parents had been pressuring me to attend, saying things like, "It's been so long since we've all sat down together," and "Sarah and Ryan will be there. Won't it be nice to reconnect?" I wasn't excited. I'd been avoiding family gatherings for a while, trying to steer clear of the guilt trips and constant money requests. But eventually I gave in. I told myself, how bad could it be? When I walked into my parents' house, the atmosphere wasn't warm or inviting. It felt strangely tense. Sarah and Ryan were already seated at the dining table, looking far too comfortable, as if they owned the place. "Hey, big spender," Sarah said as soon as she saw me, and I swear I could feel my blood pressure rise. "Sarah," I said, forcing a smile. "Ryan." I sat down, doing my best to stay calm. The small talk began, mostly with my mom and Sarah chatting about random things, her hair appointment, Ryan's new shoes, the weather. I just sat there. Finally, my dad spoke up. "Work been busy?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied, keeping it short. It was the truth, but I didn't feel like going into details. "Yeah," Sarah added, smirking. "I don't know how you do it. All those hours, all that stress. I'd be wiped out." Ryan chuckled. "Seriously, dude, you're like a machine. Always working, never stopping. Makes me tired just thinking about it." I clenched my jaw, feeling my nerves start to fray, but I told myself to stay calm. It wasn't worth it. About halfway through dinner, Sarah casually dropped a bomb. "So, Ryan and I have been thinking about buying a house." My parents' faces lit up. "Oh, that's wonderful," my mom said. "A house. That's such a big step." "Yeah," Sarah said. "We've been looking at a few places, but, houses aren't cheap. We're definitely going to need some help with the down payment." She said it so nonchalantly, like it was no big deal. I didn't say anything at first, just nodded, waiting to see if she would elaborate. But of course she didn't. She just looked at me, as if I should automatically know what she meant. My mom added, "It's such a great time to buy a house, though. Interest rates aren't terrible, and they found this cute little place they love." I still didn't say anything. I kept quiet, pretending to focus on my plate, but they kept going. Sarah leaned in, a bit impatient now. "We're so close to making it work, you know? We've been saving, but with Ryan's situation..." I should have started to get the hint. "You've always been so good with finances and everything. We've hit a bit of a wall," she added. My mom nodded, giving me that look, the one that silently screamed, "This would mean so much to Sarah." Finally, I sighed and looked up at them. "I just spent $50,000 on your wedding," I said, staring directly at Sarah. "Don't you think it's time you figured things out on your own?" Sarah's smile disappeared. "Wow, way to ruin the mood," she said. "Seriously?" Ryan added, shaking his head. "It's not like we're asking for millions. We thought you'd be happy to help." She leaned back in her chair, looking smug, like she had just won some sort of prize. "I mean, it's not like you have kids or anything. You don't have the same responsibilities we do." The way she said it, so casually dismissive, made my blood boil. My entire life had been one responsibility after another, but to her, I was just the guy without real problems, her backup plan. "You think I don't have responsibilities?" I said, my voice trembling with anger. "Who do you think has been paying for all of yours?" That's when Sarah threw the punch. "Maybe If you weren't such a loser, you wouldn't be so bitter about helping family. Loser? All those years of bending over backward for this family. And now she was sitting there, calling me a loser like nothing I'd done mattered. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, as I stared at her smug face. I wanted to flip the entire house upside down, to lash out, but for a moment all I could do was sit there, stunned by her audacity. Was this really how they saw me? I glanced at my parents, hoping to see some sign of outrage or discomfort. But my mom was sipping her water, her eyes fixed on the table as though she hadn't heard a word. My dad was completely disengaged, ignoring the whole situation. Their silence was deafening, an unspoken agreement with Sarah's words. They weren't just ignoring her, they were supporting her. My hands clenched into fists under the table. I couldn't stay quiet any longer. "A loser, huh?" I said, my voice shaking with anger. Funny coming from someone who's been riding my sacrifices like a free carnival ride for years. You think it's easy being treated like the family piggy bank while you sit back and judge? I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. You know what? Yes, I'm such a loser. Now, it's time for you to figure out your own damn life without me. Let's see how far you get. Sarah's smirk faltered, just for a second, but I caught it. The silence that followed wasn't just uncomfortable, it was suffocating. "You're being dramatic," my mom finally said. "We're family. We help each other." I snapped. "Help each other?" I said, standing up. "All I've ever done is help. I've drained my savings, maxed out my credit cards, and worked myself to the bone for you. And now you want more? I'm done. I'm not your bank account. Figure it out yourselves." Sarah looked shocked for a moment. "Wow, you're really going to act like this after everything I've been through? You're so selfish," Ryan added. "That's so messed up, man. Why are you so angry? We're not asking for much. Just a little help," I shot back. "You're sitting there in your $300 sneakers, eating food I paid for, and you want to lecture me about what's messed up? 50 grand wasn't enough? Covering your rent, your bills, your entire life, it's still not enough? What more do you want? My soul?" My mom looked like she was about to speak, but she didn't. My dad just stared down at his plate. "I'm done," I said again, tossing my napkin onto the table and grabbing my coat. "Don't call me, don't text me, and definitely don't ask me for money to pay your bills." I left, my voice firm, the anger still simmering beneath the surface. I didn't wait for a response. The door slammed behind me, cutting off their stunned silence. For the first time in years, I felt like I could finally breathe. I walked out, leaving them to deal with the mess they'd created. That night, I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel so tightly. I wasn't angry anymore. I was hurt. Hurt that my own family, the people who were supposed to support me, only saw me as a source of money. The next morning, my phone started blowing up. Sarah had sent me a series of messages, ranging from passive-aggressive to outright insulting. "Thanks for ruining dinner, by the way," she wrote. "You're seriously going to leave your own sister hanging? Wow, you're such a bitter, selfish person. No wonder you're alone." I didn't respond. I wasn't going to participate in her pity party or listen to her insults. Then my mom called. I let it go to voicemail, but the notification popped up almost immediately. "Honey, it's Mom. We need to talk. I don't know what's gotten into you, but you need to apologize to Sarah. She's been so upset since last night." Of course, I was the one who needed to apologize. The next voicemail was from my dad. "You went too far. That was uncalled for. Sarah's been through a lot, and you just walked out like that. You're better than this." "Better than what exactly?" I didn't call him back either. Sarah didn't stop there. She set up a GoFundMe. Yep, Sarah had launched a crowdfunding campaign for her down payment. The title read, "Help Us Build Our Future." The description was a sob story about how unexpected circumstances had left them needing assistance. She didn't name me directly, but anyone who knew our family could easily connect the dots. She raised a total of $75. I won't lie, I laughed harder than I had in weeks. I thought about sending her a message, telling her maybe she should try being a decent person. It's free, but I decided it wasn't worth the effort. Things took another turn when I got a call from Sarah's landlord. Apparently, she had stopped paying her rent and told him that I would cover it. "You've always handled her bills," he said. She had lied. I told him flatly, "She's not my problem anymore." He didn't seem surprised. Guess even her landlord knew what she was like. Then, because Sarah can never just let things go, she showed up at my apartment. She must have rung my doorbell at least 10 times before I finally answered. "What do you want?" I asked, already exhausted. She looked upset, the whole dramatic act. "You can't just cut me off," she said. "I'm your sister." "Yes, I can," I replied. Her expression shifted from desperation to anger. "How am I supposed to pay rent or buy groceries?" she demanded. "Figure it out," I interrupted. "Get a job, make a budget, do what the rest of us do." "I have a job," she snapped. "Then maybe stop spending all your money on designer clothes and takeout," I shot back. "You're not my responsibility, Sarah. I've done more than enough." "You're being cruel," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "No," I said firmly. "I'm being honest. You've taken advantage of me for years. I'm done." I slammed the door before she could say anything else. I wasn't about to let her guilt trip me again. A few days later, I received a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer, but then I got a notification. I had been served. It turns out Sarah was suing me. Sarah had a knack for getting her way. If you hesitated, she'd either guilt trip you or twist the story to make you the villain. Like the time she convinced my cousin to skip a family trip because her kids would be too disruptive, only to turn around and call her selfish for not attending. I didn't see it then, but looking back, I should have known. If Sarah wanted something, she'd find a way to make you give it to her. I should have seen the lawsuit coming. Sarah's claim was ridiculous. She accused me of making a verbal agreement to financially support her and said I caused her emotional distress by cutting her off. She even had fake screenshots of text messages where I supposedly promised to pay her bills. I couldn't believe it. My own sister was taking me to court because I wouldn't bankroll her life anymore. My parents, of course, were on her side. My mom called to say, "This wouldn't have happened if you'd just worked things out with her." My dad added, "She's desperate, and you're making it worse by being stubborn." "Stubborn?" I shot back. "She's suing me because I won't give her money. How is that okay?" "Just settle," my mom said. "It'll make things easier for everyone." "No," I said. "I'm not giving her a dime." So I hired a lawyer, and we prepared for a fight. The case was a circus. Sarah played the victim perfectly, telling the judge how she had relied on my promises and how my betrayal had left her struggling. But my lawyer tore her case apart. We presented receipts for every expense I'd covered, from the venue deposit to her dress. We showed how much money I'd already spent on her wedding, her rent, and her bills. When Sarah's fake screenshots came up, my lawyer pointed out the inconsistencies. The judge wasn't impressed with her lies. He dismissed the case, and Sarah was slapped with a fine for wasting the court's time. Afterward, my parents tried to guilt-trip me again. My mom said, "You didn't have to take it that far. She's your sister." "She sued me," I replied. "What did you expect me to do? Roll over and hand her more money?" They didn't have an answer. Here I am now, not knowing what to expect, but things are far from settling down, and I'm already drained from everything going on. I'll keep you all updated. Update 1? Hey guys, here's an update. After the lawsuit, I thought things might finally calm down. Sarah had embarrassed herself, my parents were out of excuses, and I was ready to move on. But if you've been following along, you know that's not how my family works. Sarah, of course, wasn't satisfied with leaving things alone. She started posting even more on social media, portraying herself as the victim of a heartless sibling. She didn't name me, but the posts were painfully obvious, and her friends, who clearly didn't know the whole story, flooded the comments with sympathy. "You deserve so much better," one wrote. "Some people just don't have a heart," another added. But the worst was yet to come. The other day, I got a call from my aunt, who I hadn't spoken to in months. Her voice was hesitant. "I heard you're refusing to help Sarah anymore. What's going on?" I sighed. "What did she tell you?" "She said you abandoned her after the wedding," my aunt replied. "She said you promised to support her and then just stopped." I couldn't believe it. Sarah wasn't just playing the victim. She was rewriting history. "That's not what happened," I explained, walking my aunt through everything: the wedding, the rent, the bills, the lawsuit. By the end, she was quiet. "I had no idea," she finally said. "She made it sound like you just walked away for no reason." "Yeah, well, that's her version," I said. "I'm done explaining myself. If people want to believe her lies, that's on them." The breaking point came a few months later when my parents called me together, which was rare. "We need to talk," my mom said. "About what?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "It's Sarah," my dad said. Well, she's in trouble again." "Of course she is," I muttered. "What now?" "She maxed out our credit cards," my mom blurted out. "We didn't know until the bills came. We can't make the payments, and the interest is piling up." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Why would you give her access to your credit cards?" I asked. "She said it was just for groceries and gas," my dad said, sounding more defeated than angry. "We didn't think she—" "You didn't think?" I interrupted. "After everything she's done, you didn't think she'd take advantage of you? Are you serious?" "She's our daughter," my mom said, her tone defensive. "And I'm your son," I shot back. "But that hasn't stopped you from treating me like nothing more than a paycheck." My mom sounded like she was about to cry. "We just thought maybe you could help us out just this once. We're drowning here, and Sarah, she's not in a good place." "No," I said, my voice firm. "This is your mess. You enabled her. You let her walk all over you, and now you're dealing with the consequences. I'm not bailing you out." "Please," my dad pleaded. "We'll pay you back." I cut him off. "I'm done. Don't call me again unless it's to apologize." I blocked Sarah on everything: social media, my phone, email. I stopped answering my parents' calls. I even told a few close friends to stop updating me on the family drama. I'm done. I feel like cutting them all off and finally being free from all this chaos. I'll keep you updated. Final update. Hey again. I'm back with another update since so many of you asked. After that phone call with my parents, I knew it was over. Whatever thread was left holding our family together had finally snapped. The bond we once shared had finally shattered. I had spent years going out of my way for Sarah. And for what? More entitlement, more guilt trips, and more people telling me I wasn't doing enough. I blocked their numbers and made the deliberate choice to move forward. At first, it felt strange. Cutting ties with family isn't something most people expect to do. There was a nagging voice in my head asking, what if they're right? What if I am the selfish one? But then I'd recall all the things I'd done for them, all the times I said yes when I wanted to say no, and the sacrifices I'd made while Sarah continued living as if money grew on trees. That voice eventually grew quieter. But Sarah wasn't ready to let go. About 2 weeks after I severed ties, I received an email from a mutual friend. Let's call her Emily. Emily mentioned that she had been at a family gathering, not mine, thankfully, where Sarah was telling everyone how I had abandoned her. She was really playing up the story, Emily wrote. She told everyone I had promised to help with her rent, her bills, even a down payment on a house, and then I just disappeared. I rolled my eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Of course, Sarah was twisting the story. She couldn't admit the truth, that she had drained me dry, and I'd finally had enough. Emily also told me that Sarah had been calling extended family members, asking for money. "She's desperate," Emily said. "I think she thought the lawsuit would scare you into giving in." But it didn't. Then the final blow came. A few weeks later, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hi," the voice said hesitantly. It was Sarah. "What do you want?" I asked. She sniffled, as if she had been crying. I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything," she said. I paused. This was unexpected. "Go on," I said. She took a deep breath. "I know I've been difficult, and I know I've asked for a lot, but I'm really struggling, and I don't know what to do." I sighed. "Sarah, I've been telling you for years that you need to figure things out on your own. You can't keep relying on other people to bail you out." "I know," she said quickly. "I know, but I'm trying. It's just hard." I could hear the manipulation creeping back into her voice. The apology wasn't genuine. It was just another attempt to make me cave. "I'm sorry you're struggling," I said firmly, "but I'm not going to fix this for you. You've made your choices, and now you have to live with them." She didn't like my response. "You're being so cold," she snapped. "How can you just turn your back on me like this?" "Because I've spent my whole life cleaning up your messes," I replied, "and I'm done. Goodbye, Sarah." I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to her. Now, months have passed since I cut ties with Sarah and my parents, and honestly, it's been the most peaceful time of my life. No guilt trips, no frantic calls for money. I've started rebuilding my savings, and for the first time, I'm thinking about my future. From what I've heard, Sarah is still living with my parents. She's burned through their savings and maxed out all their options. They're struggling, but I can't say I feel sorry for them. They created this situation by enabling her for so long. As for me, I've finally bought my own house. It's small, nothing fancy, but it's mine. No one can take it from me, and no one can guilt me into sacrificing it for their needs. I've learned something important through all of this. Family isn't just about DNA. It's about mutual respect, love, and boundaries. If those aren't there, you're just enabling toxicity. I may have lost my family, but I've gained something far more valuable: peace. They weren't invited to the housewarming, and they probably never will be. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Here's to moving forward.